and folks can join in. So for those on the line, I know I see mostly familiar faces. My name is Rachel Lieblein-Gerbala. I'm the program manager at the Spencer Educational Foundation, and I am so excited to welcome today Lance Ewing, who is the Executive Vice President of Global Risk Management at Cotton Holdings, for his presentation, The Wind Blew, the Earth Shook, the River Rose, and My Claim is Still Not Paid. Lance, we're so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. Folks, as we usually do, if you have any questions for Lance throughout his presentation, please feel free to write those in the chat and I will field them his way. And without further ado, Lance, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Good day, everybody. Hope you're having an outstanding day of whatever our new normal is today in the world of COVID-19. I am pleased and honored to be able to speak to each of you from the Spencer standpoint. It's a great opportunity. Just a few ground rules, if you will. I will advance the slides. As we know, in the world of Zoom, things don't always go the way they're supposed to. There might be glitches, there may be problems, there may be a whole myriad of things. The good news is good risk management. Rachel has my PowerPoint. So if I go down, she's going to take the floor and go ahead and run with the rest of this. So she's going to be a risk management expert before we know it. So to the students out there, thank you for spending a little bit of your time today. It's absolutely great. I wish I was meeting you on a personal basis and give you a handshake or fist bump or a group therapy hug, but I'll spend some time with you today. And to those that are out there, I see that Greg Landon from App State is there. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Always good to see you. Thumbs up. Exactly. Tell Karen I said hello. Excuse me. But today what I wanted to talk to you about is, and again, I've had the privilege of being in risk management for almost my entire career. I did spend a little time on the insurance carrier side for a period of time. I've never been on the dark side. The insurance broker or agency side. I've never been on that side. One day, maybe when I grow up, that'll happen for me. But right now, that's probably not in the cards. I sort of stick to the risk management side of things, the things that you do, in fact, know. And I'm very passionate and love the profession in risk management and the other support networks and service providers, whether it's an insurance carrier, whether you're an insurance agent, whether you're a third-party administrator, you're a claims adjuster, whatever your career goal is or the opportunity that you want to explore as a student, it's absolutely awesome that we have this footprint. Now, I'm sure other speakers or other people you've heard talk who are in the profession right now have said, oh, well, I backed into this, or, this wasn't in my career path when I was in high school or something like that. But the fact is, the beauty of this is you have the ability to have learned the technical side of this that most of us grew up with on the side of we got thrown into the deep end of the pool. At least or being taught from your professors as well as, excuse me, the outside folks in regards to what risk management truly is. And I hope each of you will have a very long and prosperous career. Those of you that are currently working for companies or interns for companies, you're getting more of a flavor of that hands-on. In no way disparaging the wonderful professors, and I've had the opportunity personally to have had the chance to address at 30 different universities in regards to risk management, and to tell the tale as to why risk management is the best profession you possibly can get involved in, or the insurance industry overall. I absolutely love it. I couldn't think of a better career. Never been happier in my jobs that I've had, and this one not being, excuse me, this one not being anything atypical related to that as well too. So, but getting the practical experience is very important. I've been able to participate as a risk manager in residence through Spencer, and I thank them as well for the universities. I've actually gone to universities on my own dime and my own money in order to speak to the students, because I just think preparing for the future and seeing your bright shining faces and your eager young minds are absolutely something that makes me very happy. So again, on that side, I'm also a very strong proponent of the Spencer internship program. I have an intern this year from Ole Miss who's working for us in the Houston-Katy area, and he is doing a magnificent job. He is absolutely awesome. And I've utilized interns throughout my entire career. I think they're absolutely amazing. So if you have the opportunity or the chance to be part of that, hats off to you. That's a great thing. So without further ado, I want to get into my presentation. Now, I will tell you up front that we may not get through everything, or we may get through everything and there might be time left, and I'll give you some of your day back, which will be good. Or if we're running a little bit over, I think Rachel can move that clock just a little bit, 3 to 5 minutes. You'll notice that I do speak quickly, so I apologize. I get 100 words a minute with gusts up to 300. So if I lose anybody during this period of time, I will in fact apologize. But what I wanted to talk to you about, and a lot of the prior presentations have been absolutely great. Some of them talk about their companies, those type of things. What I thought I would talk to you about today in regards is the world of claims. And I can talk to you about risk finance and captives, and I can talk to you about all kinds of things. But really where the rubber meets the road, and I'm sure the professors and the other folks out there can attest to the fact that I look at, and when I teach classes, I always say, you're not buying an insurance policy. And everybody looks at me like I have 3 heads and go, what do you mean? No, it's an insurance policy. It says insurance policy. You go, yes, it may say that, but it's really a claims policy, because no one cares about the insurance part of it. They care whether, is my claim covered, is my claim not covered, and how much am I going to get back? And that's really what you're doing, whether you want to be an agent, whether you're an insurance underwriter. Claims is an integral part, and we buy claims policies because we want to know whether the claim is covered or not. And I can tell you from my experience as a risk manager, when I get my policy, I don't even look at the declaration page. I don't look at whose name is on it. I go right to the exclusions page, because the exclusions tell you what is not going to be covered. And those items that are not going to be covered, that is my platform as a risk manager of what I have to go to my C-suite and say to them, hey, this isn't covered. And they're going to look at me and go, that's nice, Lance. What are you doing about that? And that's my responsibility and my job and my platform and my program to help build that. And yes, those of you that are true insurance policy geeks will say, well, Lance, what the exclusions taketh away, the endorsements can giveth back, right? So we understand that, and I do get that concept, but overall the exclusions are a litmus test of how well your risk management program is and whether claims are going to be part of what's covered and what's not covered. So I'm going to make it somewhat, as I told Rachel, I'll make it somewhat educational, and I'll make it a lot more entertaining, hopefully, so that you're not dying here. So the opportunity here as we move through the slides together, sort of stay with me, right? So I'm going to advance. First of all, there's a disclaimer. What I'm going to say is no reflection on my company, Cotton. What Cotton is, and I'll give you a brief 2-minute elevator speech. Cotton is a privately held company, and we handle when a bad property claim happens, a catastrophic claim. We're the firemen running into the building. We do restoration work, we do construction work, we do rebuild, we work on business continuity plans, we put new roofs on, we put temporary roofs on, we suck up water, we tear out drywall, we rip up old carpeting that has gotten flooded, we fix windows. We also do culinary services. So for some of our clients, we have chefs on board, and we can provide food services for our clients in remote areas. We can also provide it for clients, for instance, in the Bahamas, when the hurricane went through a oil refinery area there, we fed their employees over that period of time, as well as our own employees, because there were no restaurants open. We provide housing. We fed FEMA workers during Hurricane Harvey. We also have an environmental division. So if there's an oil spill or some type of a disaster related to environmental, we can clean that up as well. So we have a very diversified portfolio of companies. So I don't want to say that, hey, when I speak, that I represent Cotton. I mean, I reflect Cotton, but my comments here may not reflect exactly Cotton. So that's my little disclaimer. And then Lance has his own personal disclaimer. Can you read that language? Oh, you can't. That's good. Okay, if I could make the font any smaller, I probably would. But that basically says you can't sue me, so go find a lawyer or someone else, and then therefore. So that's Lance's disclaimer. Now, you know, if you're working in an insurance company or an agency or a brokerage or you are a risk manager, you have clients or companies that wear this t-shirt, right? They figure they can take crazy risks because they feel they have good insurance coverage. And we currently are what's known as a hard insurance market. That indicates that prices are up, premiums are up, carriers are not giving additional endorsements, they're not very lenient, and they have the pen. They're saying, no, we're going to insure only this kind of industry or this type of vertical or this marketplace. We're not going to write in Chicago anymore. They may make that determination. So we're in a different insurance market right now. But I'm sure each of you, and I can tell you, I'll use my own experience, those of you that are young students, at some point in time, you have probably done something that could be determined based on Webster's dictionary of stupid. You took a stupid risk. We've all done that. One of the things I enjoy doing is I enjoy riding a motorcycle. I take a motorcycle trip. I take a long trip every single year. When I lived in Las Vegas, I used to love to jump out of perfectly sound and good airplanes. I love the parachute. It's an adrenaline rush. I love doing those kind of things. I own a Rottweiler. I have 2 daughters. All of those are risks at some point in time in which we have to deal with. You as students are taking risks as well too. Who your roommate is, who you're going drinking with Friday night, who you're going to go, on vacation with, if we ever get a chance to go on vacation anymore. But the fact is we all take risks, and risks are part of everyday life, whether it's personal or professional. It really doesn't matter. We don't exist as an industry without clients taking risks. You build a house in the Gulf of Mexico, the likelihood of a hurricane, probability-wise, likely could have that. You build a house in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, or Bittendorf, Iowa, the likelihood of a hurricane is pretty remote. I'm just saying. But roof collapse, those kind of things. So when we evaluate risks, and you have clients out there that don't have enough insurance, and you have clients that have too much insurance, not so much in today's hard market. But again, clients will take stupid risks. And the fact is that all jobs, and again, this is what we're looking at from a student standpoint. You want to be employed at some point, hopefully, unless your family is exceptionally wealthy and you have a trust fund and you don't have to work. If that's the case, I'd like to be adopted by your family. I would like to be part of your family moving forward. But almost every job has risks, and some have more risks than others. As a risk manager, I can tell you that this basically is my life every day. I'm always juggling things. There's a bunch of things. I'm rolling on a ball. Something is going to crash. And when it crashes, that's known as a claim. And I'm going to talk to you more about property claims going forward in the next 30-some minutes that we have here. But we are juggling a lot of different things as a risk manager. We're juggling the insurance side. We're juggling the COVID side. We're juggling security from protests and riots right now. We're juggling, racial diversity and overall diversity and inclusion issues. We're involved in a lot of different things in the risk management. We're involved in our operations. We're involved in finance. We're involved in so many things, and we're trying to keep as many balls in the air juggling-wise as we possibly can. And those of you that at an early age actually read this book, The Cat in the Hat, we all know that the cat in the hat and all those things they juggled eventually fell down, and there was a huge loss. And there was worry on the part of the 2 kids, because mom and dad were coming home at some point in time. And they had to figure out, how do we clean up this mess created by this, the cat in the hat? The issue is, this is your first introduction to insurance and risk management, because you have to bring in somebody from the outside. And if you remember the story, thing 1 and thing 2 came to your rescue. Thing 1 was the insurance carrier, and thing 2 was the broker. They come in to help you clean the mess up when there's a loss or a disaster or something of that nature, and to get it put back together as quickly as they can. And that's part of what we're doing. And I know this is rudimentary and somewhat elementary, but it does have resonation. It was my first introduction to crisis management and risk management. I still have the book on my shelf. I keep it right next to insurance policies. And some of the risks, such as, I'm going to give you some professions that have risks. That could be a job that maybe you want to have. That looks risk-taking to me. I'm not sure I want that job from a risk-taking standpoint. I'm not sure I want this job from a risk-taking standpoint either, right? Yeah, those of you that follow at home, these are deodorant testers for consumer products. And what they do is that's their job. Imagine going in every day saying, honey, I'm going to go in and smell some man's armpit. There's risk in that job. This is a risk. Usually I call this the claims people's job, because they got to figure out how to clean up the mess, so to speak, a lot of times. So that's part of it. That's a tough job as well, too. And now let's save the best for last, which is our risk management job. We're always cleaning up the elephants after the circus. This is what we do on a regular, routine basis. Somebody has a brilliant idea and it goes bad. And I've worked for companies that have come to me and said, we're going to do this, Lance. And I go, great. That's going to end in tears and sorrow. That's what's going to happen. This is not going to be a good ending, but it's job security for me, because you're going to come to me and go, hey, can you pick up the pieces? And do we have insurance for that? And what do you do for risk mitigation? So we get involved in that. So every job has risk of some type. But what I want to talk to you about it today is more on the property insurance claims side. And I worked for the carriers. I worked as an underwriter. I worked as an HPR engineer. I worked on the claims side of things. Claims are, I mean, in my viewpoint, one of the coolest jobs you can have as an insurance carrier, because you will have stories that you will keep for your lifetime. Now, I'm not saying if you have a ambition to be a workers' compensation underwriter, that's pretty much insomnia. But if you have a desire to do that, there's nothing wrong with that profession. But on the claim side of things, especially property, you're going to see all kinds of things that you will never, ever see before, such as this situation in which there was a flood. The lady's house actually literally slid into the river that you see there. And while it was sliding in there, the gas pipes erupted and caught the house on fire and floated it down the river. When you look at the insurance policy, it's usually one or the other, flood and subsidence or fire. One of the two of them has to come to play. Now we've brought them both together. So do I get paid twice, or whose policy does that fall under? Those are the kind of things that we look at from a property insurance side of things. I love my time doing claims. I still love my time doing claims. But on the property side of things, you're going to see a myriad of different type of claims. So let's look at where these claims are going to come from. The claims on the property side, these are $1 billion weather and climate. This is just natural disaster stuff. These aren't like plant explosions or fires that aren't wildfires. These are naturally caused in 2019, $1 billion. If you had a $900 million loss, yeah, that doesn't show up here. These are just $1 billion ones that we're seeing from natural disasters. We've had wildfires, you've had floods, you've had hail. Is $1 billion worth of hail damage twice last year. I mean, just 2 times in Texas and excuse me, Texas and in Colorado. Look at the 2 hurricanes. We currently have something brewing in the Atlantic right now. It seems to be dodging the bullet in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and the USVI, but could be barreling down on Florida. You've got to keep an eye on that. Our company does that. We keep track of that for our clients as well. But look at some of the property losses that that we deal with on a regular basis. Left-hand corner, that's an earthquake in Mexico. The right-hand side, that's a swimming pool with a house. No, that's a flood that actually occurred in Houston for a residential home. Left-hand side, that's a roof collapse during the winter time in Wisconsin. And the right-hand side, that is part of the Minnesota riots that took place in the fire situation we have. All of them, you can see where the property damage and the property claims are going to come from. These property claims don't just materialize out of nowhere. The Minnesota situation is man-made. It didn't get struck by lightning. There wasn't, excuse me, there wasn't a wildfire. This was man-made. Roof collapses, earthquakes, floods, those type of things. Floods can be man-made as well too. Our company does a lot of work for hotel companies, restoration companies, etc. And somebody has a great idea that they're going to be romantic for their significant other, turn on the tub, put flowers down on the around rose petals, and put on nice soft music and bottles of champagne, and then they forget to turn the tub off. Well, it overflows and goes down 14 floors and floods every room underneath it. That's man-made as well too. So they come in various shapes and forms with where these claims are coming from. The wildfires out west that we continually see, the tsunamis that you see in Japan. And in the right-hand corner down there, that is a volcano. There's a very small country that's very popular for destinations, or was until COVID kicked in, and that's known as Iceland. And that's become a tourist destination. If you've never been, I highly recommend when everything gets lifted, you get the opportunity to go. It's a really cool little place. However, that volcano that you see there cost over $1 billion of loss to the airline industry, because every flight from Europe to the United States had to be rerouted. It was the largest at the time, other than COVID, at the time, that was the largest financial loss other than a plane crash that affected the airline industry. So these natural disasters don't even have to be your client's losses. They can actually be, the client didn't have the loss. It was a small, no offense, about the size of Rhode Island volcano that happened that caused billions of dollars worth of loss. That's a property loss from business interruption standpoint. So you say, okay, Lance, there's all these losses. We get this. How do we start to predict these? And there's this cool thing called catastrophic modeling. And this isn't like modeling on a runway somewhere or on Vogue magazine or anything like that. The modeling of these, it's a little more boring than that. But the modeling that looked at, and there's companies out there that do modeling, whether it's for hurricanes, floods, wildfires. You can model a lot of different things. And I'm not going to go, we could spend a whole hour on just modeling or a whole 4 hours on modeling what they do, but I'm going to give you a slight taste of this. We in the claims and property side of things have to look at these models. Are the models right all the time? No, they're not. There's you may hearken back to your high school algebra, in which you remember this little thing called a distribution curve, right? Had that little bell curve thing, and certain things laid on the outside, margin of error by 10%, on the other side, margin of error by 10%. We were concentrating on what's in the middle. That's pretty much what catastrophic modeling does. So when we look at catastrophic modeling, it's sort of modeled in 4 areas, and I'm just going to hit the high points. Look, you're very intelligent. I have no desire to read all this stuff. If Rachel would like to give you the PowerPoint, I'm more than happy. She can distribute it. If someone asks for it, happy to do that. But we look at event modeling, and this is each kind of catastrophic loss. We got to calculate that, and what's the history? What's the geography of a certain place? Are they prone to mudslides in California? What's the geology? I'll give you an example. I lived in Las Vegas for 7 years, and those of you in the West may experience this as well, but there's actually a soil known as caliche. And caliche is this hard soil made of concrete. And if you happen to be putting a swimming pool in your backyard in Las Vegas, in the contract it says, we, the swimming pool company, will put your swimming pool in. If we discover caliche and we have to jackhammer this, your price just went up 20%. Also, there's sand pockets out in Las Vegas as well. So if you built your house on what you thought was solid ground, the sand pocket can actually, you might build a 2-3 story building with no basement. If you hit the sand pocket, you could then have a 2-story building with a 1-story basement because it will sink over a period of time. These things come into play. We use hazard models as well from the modeling standpoint. This is measuring the specific geographic area of design. I use the sort of flippant example of if you were in Bittendorf, Iowa, the likelihood if you're heat mapping your enterprise risk management program, probably hurricane is pretty low down there, right? If you are in Gulfport, Mississippi, hurricane probably is in the 80% quartile. And I'm going to give you an example of that as well too. What is the vulnerability module? How vulnerable are your buildings? What is the, like when Hurricane Katrina came through, all the buildings on the Gulf Coast were built to a Category 3 hurricane. Now they have to be built to a Category 5. Do you ever make a stupid mistake and then you don't make that mistake ever again? Well, that's the same thing with the modeling side of things. We've all done that, right? We always go, oh, that didn't work. Or we say, oh, and then there's an expletive related to that. And you try not to make that mistake again. So, you know, again, everybody looks from what the vulnerability is, your architecture, building codes. And then financially, the most important one of these modules that step into the risk modeling is the financial impact. That's what everybody wants to know. What is my hit going to be? And it can't be just your client's buildings, but it's also the community. Will the community get back up and running? What about the infrastructure? What about police, fire? I can tell you during Hurricane Katrina, and I realize many of you in Hurricane Katrina were like in like 4th grade or something like that because you were students way back then, right? But that was in 2005. But the fact is that when you look at the financial model that hit down there, it took a huge amount of time for that to come back in. So that's what we're looking at from the financial modeling standpoint. So anyway, so I've given you where can some of these losses come from? I'm giving you how we actually try to predict some of these losses. Are we right all the time? Nope, but we are trying to look from the modeling. And there are some companies that do their own modeling internally, large corporations. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a small retail company in Bentonville, Arkansas. You may have heard of that company. You may have shopped at their stores, but you know, they probably are the only retail company in Bentonville, Arkansas. There's another company, they do their own modeling as well too. There's another company that's headquartered in Los Angeles, and you've probably seen, they sell a lot of mouse ears at their theme parks. And I can't tell you who the name of the company is, but they do their own modeling as well too. They rely on the broker's model. They rely on RMS or AIR. Those are modeling companies. They rely on the insurance carriers. And remember that margin of error by 10%? That's a lot of money to a company that is reliant, that has locations in Florida and other places as well too from a hurricane standpoint. So these are some of the things that you just need to be cognizant and aware of. So let's talk about the property claims, and let's talk about when the wind blows, when the earth shakes, and when the rivers rise. Those are the things that we're going to look at. And I'm going to come at it now from the lens of from a risk management professional. What is it that we look for, what we do when the property claims actually kick in? So what it does is, like everything else, it's pre-planning, it's getting things done beforehand. And again, I'm not going to read all those. I'm going to go through some high points there that I think are salient and have some materiality related to what we're going to talk about on these claims. But it's like anything else. Those of you that are students that might have, or that might have, like when you prepare for a test, right? You have an exam on Friday. And we all prepare for exams differently, right? There's those of us that, like me, who wait till midnight and go, guess I better look at the book. And then I drink beer until 4 a.m. in the morning. And then I take the test at 8 o'clock, right? And hope for the best. There are other of you that have 3x5 cards, and there's colored highlighters, and you've taken copious notes, and there's all these things, and you locked yourself in a room and you just study yourself to death. And we fall into those categories somewhere there. But we do the same thing in risk management, is how do I mitigate or prevent that claim from happening? So the first thing that you need to do is find your policies. And you will be surprised at the number of clients out there that have no idea where their policies are. You will meet risk managers that go, where's your environmental policy? And you go, I don't know. Well, where's your property policies? My broker has them. Those aren't good answers in the risk management community. And let's be honest, those of you that have autos, you have cars, right? You have car insurance. When you get your insurance policy, 99% of the time you look at it and go, oh, that's expensive. And you put it in the electronic file somewhere, you drop it in a desk file somewhere, and you never pay attention to it until what? There's a claim. And there are risk managers and companies that do the same thing. They get their policy and they never read it, they never look at it, they just simply drop it in there and go, my broker's got me protected, my carrier's got me protected, I'm good. That's a recipe for disaster when you have a major property claim. Because remember my exclusions page? You actually have to read the policies. Now, I will tell you, if anyone has read an insurance policy from beginning to end, you need a therapy group. You really do. You need somebody to actually get a better life, but you have to read the policies. And reading the policies from beginning to end is boring. It's like a Stephen King novel. Everybody dies at the end. It's not a good thing to read. Never be on a bestsellers list, but you actually have to read the policies. You can have someone else read the policies. You can have your broker read them. You can have outside counsel read them. Anyway, so I'm not going to, like I said, walk through all these things, but these are some of the things that you need to have ahead of time. And I'll put out there, if you think about your own home, if you have a home, excuse me, is that what if 25% of the house burned down? What if 50% of the house burned down? What if 75% of the house burned down? Or what is 100% of the house burned down? Is that going to put you out of commission? If you have a house with 4 bathrooms and one of the bathrooms floods and it doesn't work anymore and the repair people and the restoration people work on it, is that a big problem? Probably not. You've got 3 other bathrooms, right? Just using common sense. If you are a 1-bathroom family and you have 14 kids and that bathroom goes down, now we have a problem. So 25%, 50%, 75%, you need to look at it that way. You also need to look at your remediation companies. Forensic accountants are very important because that's where the money is. All these people, the time to go find a tree service after a hurricane isn't flipping through the phone book or Googling, because it's already taken up. You need to have your restoration company and your other companies already in place. So once the claim happens, once you have a claim, the building burns, the creek rises, your building gets flooded, excuse me, your house gets flooded, your apartment, whatever, who gets invited to the claim party? And yes, it's actually a party. There's a lot of people who are invited. The company that got flooded or who's affected, the entity gets invited. The claims adjuster, he or she is very important because they're going to say, yes, we're going to cover that. No, we're not going to cover that. Yes, this is in your policy. No, it's not. The forensic accountant's going to figure out finance. Coverage counsel, and I'll get to that. Outside experts, brokers and agents, the claims adjuster, in-house and outside. And then you're going to have multiple carriers involved. And the question is, why does it take so long? Look, I had a flood. I sent you some pictures. Why can't you just send me a check? That is a question that is asked by every Fortune 100 company, whether you are Amazon, whether you are Dow Chemical, whether you are International Paper, it really doesn't matter. It just seems to take a lot longer when the claim's paid. And one of the things that a lot of risk managers say, I paid you my premium, how come I can't get my claim paid at the same time? Like, you want paid within 30 days, I want paid on my claim. It takes a long period of time for all of those reasons that you see listed there. And the most important one that I'll go over there is the fact that they don't want to tell you no. Because if they are a lifetime client, let's say you've been on that account as an insurance carrier for 20 years, or you've been a broker on that. No one wants to deliver bad news. No one wants to say, no, your claim's not covered, or sorry, it's not there. There's a lot of things that bake into that, why, and they don't want to tell you no. No is very hard for a carrier many times, or for an agent or broker to explain to you. So that there is issues why it does take as long as it does. So, and from my perspective, what's a risk manager to do? So the first thing you need to do is check the information that you sent. If you sent pictures of the wrong building, that's probably not going to, that's going to delay your claim. If you didn't fill out the claim form properly and just guessed, that's probably wrong too. You've got to be able to consult with your broker. Now, in large companies, large corporations, and many small corporations, we have coverage counsel. One of the things that I do every 3 years is I take all my insurance policies and I send them off to an attorney, an outside attorney who doesn't work for us or doesn't work for anyone else. His job, excuse me, is to review policies and tell me where there are gaps. It is money well spent, especially if you have a lot of property, a lot of total insured value, or TIV. You've got to also make sure that you are checking your coverage counsel to make sure they're identifying where losses are going to be. So all of these things on your checklist. Now, the cool thing is, some of you may know or may not know, is that first to last bullet point. You can ask for an advance. If you have $1 million loss and the adjuster says, yeah, we can agree that we owe you probably $300,000. Why would you sit around waiting for the full million to figure out? Or let's say the adjuster says, yes, $700,000 of your $1 million claim. Yeah, it's covered. We absolutely see that. We know that. But we're not going to pay you until we decide on the other $300,000. Why should $700,000 of agreed upon money be held up? Because we're arguing over $300,000. Does that make sense? So $700,000, ask for the advance. Give me $500,000 of it. Give me $400,000. Give me something. Prime the pump. And you can also settle around. If you have multiple carriers and one carrier wants to settle, take his or her money. Telling a carrier, no, I don't want your money, worst idea in the world. Take whatever money. Don't settle, just take their money. We're not going to settle, so we're going to take the money. I'm going to walk you through in the last couple of minutes we've got here in the process in regards to claims, major claims. You should always, and you should do this in your personal life too. You should negotiate with somebody, mediate, get somebody else from the outside to step in, arbitrate, and then litigate. And it's always in that order. You should never skip right to litigation. I'm going to sue you. Well, no, why don't we talk about this first, right? So these are, again, these bullet points. You got to work with people like that. Excuse me. And you definitely want to leverage your negotiations. You want to have relationships, those type of things. And these are, again, a bunch of things that I'm more than happy to go through. The last bullet point is 2 bullet points. One is lunch. You see lunch on there, you're like, how does that work? Take the other side to lunch. They have a lot harder time saying no when they have got a fork full of food in front of them and you're paying for the lunch. You as the client should pay for the lunch. Say, I want to get together and have this conversation. People ease back a little more when a meal is involved. And I just historically, it's psychological. More people are willing to do that, to have a solid negotiation related to when there's food around and in a public place. Just my viewpoint. And the final one is leave your ego at the door. You know, and I'll go into something else in regards to this as well too. But your ego is going to get you in more trouble than anything else. And if you have to litigate, use my philosopher, Calvin and Hobbes. My favorite philosopher in the world, Calvin and Hobbes. He says, I'm selling a swift kick in the back end for $1. Well, how's business? Well, it's terrible. I can't understand. Everybody I know needs one. We all need kicked in the back end sometimes. You may need to kick your insurance carrier in the end, the broker in the end. You may need to kick them and go to litigation. This is not fun. And I have sued a number of insurance carriers. It's not something I like to do. All are amicable. But the fact is, you may break up with them. They may say, you can sue me, but we're never writing any of your other insurance. For a long period of time, there was a disagreement between that company in Los Angeles with mouse ears and theme parks and AIG. There was a hate-hate relationship related to them, all due to my viewpoint, Lance's viewpoint, my disclaimer, the egos of the AIG head at the time and the head of Walt Disney at the time. Excuse me, I mean that unnamed company, I can't tell you who it is. And that ego, and they broke up. 7 years of never doing business together. So, and in most things, relationships are important. And is this an area you want to delve into? And I will tell you that over 90% of all lawsuits, they end up settling. You never get in front of a judge. You never get to tell your story completely. You never get to wait for a jury to come back with a verdict in your favor against you. 90% of the insurance lawsuits will end up settling. No one wants to pay a bunch of lawyers if you can't. So those are some things that you want to be aware of. And the top one is the important. Is this a mountain you want to die on? Is it that important to save $20,000 to get a $20 million claim settled? And it's really important to think about that, personal life and professional life too. I'm going to run through my real life scenario. This is Hurricane Katrina. I was head of global risk management for Caesars Entertainment. That is a casino barge you see on Highway 90. It should not have been on the highway. It should be in the water. That's where casino barges float. So that should not have been there during Katrina. And you can see the numbers on the right-hand side. The Mississippi loss for Harrah's at the time, Harrah's Caesars at the time, was $1.1 billion. There were 27 insurance carriers involved. New Orleans, with both Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita, was about a $225 million loss. We had 12 carriers involved. Hurricane Rita, Lake Charles. Our riverboat casinos, one of them went out to the middle of Lake Charles and sunk. The entire administration barge went out and sunk, and the other one ended up on the land. The only thing that stayed intact, it was perfectly not affected all that bad except for a lot of debris, was the parking lot. Everything else was sort of damaged there. That was a $140 million loss. But as you can see, hurricanes cause a lot of damage. This was outside of our parking garage in Gulfport, Mississippi. I don't know if you can see the tractor trailers there, but those were actually in the port waiting to offload bananas. Those were full of bananas. And you can imagine that you go to the second floor of your hotel and there's a tractor trailer on the second floor of your hotel, and there's bananas all over the hallway and inside the rooms. They got thrown like projectiles. You can see the HVAC unit that fell intact. That's not supposed to be on the ground. That should be up on a rooftop 4 stories high. So again, and bear in mind, folks, it's August in Mississippi on the Gulf Coast. The odor was absolutely wonderful. It was something that you probably want to put in an air freshener. No. But again, and it's hot and it's humid and it's miserable. So these are the kind of things that you're not expecting from a claim standpoint. And you always need to expect the unexpected when a claim occurs. If you see the brown debris on the right-hand side, in addition to the banana smell, there was a chicken plant, and the effluents from the chicken slaughter plant ended up in our parking lot. So you have all of these nice hazardous waste type of situations to deal with. In New Orleans, we had roof damage, which was pretty bad, and that number I gave you, which was $220-some million, was more for business interruption. It wasn't for physical damage, as you can see. Now, good, smart risk manager in New Orleans, I called up a friend of mine, one of my risk managers' father worked for the National Guard. And I called him up, and he was a higher up in the National Guard. And I said to him, hey, would your troops who are being deployed to New Orleans, would they like to stay at our casino? I've got air conditioning, I've got food, I've got water, I've got shower facilities. I've got all those things. Would your guard like to stay in our casino? And he goes, absolutely. Do you think I had any looting problem? It's hard to loot when there's a tank in front of your casino, right? So part of that is just being aware from that standpoint. And you have to expect the unexpected. That is a 680-pound dead sea lion in our parking lot in Gulfport, Mississippi. When you get down on the ground, you don't expect to see a 680-pound dead sea lion. And I have a manual. It's called a crisis management manual and a business continuity planning manual. When I look at that manual, I looked under D for dead or S for sea lion. I didn't see anything under there. What do I do with that sea lion? Now, there was an aquarium, unfortunately, and that's where the sea lion actually came from. Unfortunately, he passed away. I didn't know what to do. So in a claim, you got to expect the unexpected many times. So finally, my final insurer thought, and I'm closing in on my 45 minutes here. Usually this is a little bit longer from a classroom standpoint, but the insurance always pays. And I love the fact that insurance always pays, right? And that's a life-size picture of me. But the fact is insurance does pay. And what I'd like to do is to quite frankly, thank Spencer. I want to thank Spencer for the opportunity. And again, hopefully you stayed with me a little bit here over our 45 minutes. But I want to thank Spencer for the amazing job they do. All of us would not be here without Spencer. Spencer is the glue that holds us together, both from a student standpoint, from a corporation standpoint, from an entity standpoint. They are the most giving human beings there. If Rachel could give all the money away, and her and Megan could do that, I'm sure they would love to do that. But the fact is she likes to pay her rent, and therefore, so she needs paid a little bit. But Spencer does an amazing job. So anything we can do to help support Spencer and to support you, we'll definitely do. Okay? And finally, I want to thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Just don't ask me any hard questions. It's been a long couple of months, so I may be tapped out on any hard questions. Rachel, with that, I think I'm going to give everybody back 1 or 2 minutes of their life, unless there's any questions out there. And I appreciate you all staying with me. I truly, truly do. I love you as students. If there's anything I can ever do for you, please let me know. And Rachel has my email address. I am more than happy to share that with you. If you are on LinkedIn, please link in with me as well, too.
Wonderful, Lance. Thank you so much. This was an amazing presentation. I'm going to see if there's any questions in the chat. Darren Bloomfield asked, can you talk about social inflation?
Yes, great question. Very positive situation that's going now in regard to social inflation. When we, back in the day, so the earth cooled the dinosaur, and then there was me, right? From that standpoint. But when we start looking at aspects from social inflation, one of the things to bear in mind, and some of you may or may not be familiar with the term, but you're looking at societal trends related to increased litigation that could occur based on certain, or contractual sides of things, or plaintiff-friendly legal decisions, or large jury decisions. One of those, and I'll go back and I'll use where social inflation actually began to come into play, was Hurricane Katrina. Because you had all these people that were adversely affected. And let's take it out of corporations. Let's take it into residential. All these people's homes were flooded, et cetera. And then what happened was the insurance companies came back and said, the Allstate, State Farms, et cetera, said, whoa. Storm surge is not covered. That's excluded. Wind-driven rain is covered. But we believe it was storm. From a social standpoint, that was just the wrong decision. These people were adversely affected. And so when you look at social inflation, and look, social inflation can hurt the insurance industry. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely could. In that case, Allstate, State Farm, et cetera, had said, hey, we're fine. We're covered because it doesn't include storm surge. It says it right there. However, the changing dynamics are therefore the sway related to society. Therefore, they didn't have the money set aside. They had to dip into their reserves in order to pay for those claims that societally made that determination. Absolutely great question. I could get into that further and further, but I don't want to take up too much time. But the litigation, the legal decisions, and when it got to juries, it's a jury of your peers. If my house was flooded and now I'm on a jury to determine if everybody else should get paid for their house flood, what do you think is going to happen? Well, we're going to lean in on that side. If you're interested, one of the things you can look at is, put this down, is judicial hell, H-E-L-L, holes. It's not my term. That's an actual thing called judicial hell holes. And you can look at them. Usually the tort reform group, you can go online and find judicial hell holes, change every year. But these are places where that societal inflation, you do not stand a chance to get a defense verdict related to that. The likelihood of that is me growing hair. Not going to happen. So you need to be cognizant and aware of those, because that's where a lot of that societal inflation is starting to come into play. And there's also, and I can get into it, I've spoken on this for AM Best and RIMS as well, is in regards to what they call reptilian litigation. And this is where they play on your emotions. And they're playing in regards to that, right? The safety, that type of thing. It's called a reptilian side of things. One of two things. A reptilian snake will try to slide away and get away from danger, or it'll turn around and bite, one or the other. And that's what they're playing on. So if you're ever interested in that, please look me up. I'm more than happy to send you a PowerPoint on that, as well as the video that we did on it. Okay, Rachel?
Great. Thank you. And we have another chat.
Sure.
Oh, no, never mind. Not a question. Akil, I'll get back to you on that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Akil asked, can we connect with Lance for guidance? And Lance, it sounds like that's absolutely something you're open to.
I try to mentor students as best as I can. As I said, if you would like to, if you're on LinkedIn, please go ahead and link in with me. Love the opportunity. I have a lot of students that I connect with. More than happy. Also, the cool part about LinkedIn, although it's starting to become social media-like a Facebook type of thing. Look, I'm not a Luddite. I love social media in some cases, but I'm not huge on social media. You won't find me on Facebook. I don't Snapchat, whatever. I don't talk TikTok. I'm not. But I love social media. I love technology, all that kind of stuff. I don't. LinkedIn is about as far as I get, if you will. But if you link in with me, you can look at my connections. And if you're interested in a job with one of the companies, like the vice president of risk management for whomever, if you're looking at my connections and you want to have a conversation with them and they have an open position, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to do that. And whether it's on the carrier side or the broker side, John Doyle at Marsh, Greg Case at Aon, Michael Chang or at Sampo, anywhere that you want to, I'm more than happy to connect in with you if I can actually make a recommendation. So yes, absolutely open to helping out. Again, you are my future, and I want to look back positively going, I actually left it a better place than it was.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lance. All right, we're running a couple minutes over. I just have a very brief announcement. Next week, I hope to see you all again next Thursday, same time, same place. Connie Ennis will be joining us. She is the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Distribution at Arch Insurance Group. Her presentation is going to be titled, What is a Specialty Insurance Company? So we look forward to that. Lance, again, warm thank yous from all of us at Spencer for joining us today and for this incredible presentation. And thank you all who are here for joining us today.
Thanks, Rachel. Look forward to seeing you again. Take care, everybody. Stay safe and have a great one. Take care.
Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.